Psalm 6, a cry of anguish, a plea for mercy. This psalm, attributed to King David, takes us on a journey into the depths of human suffering. We witness David, the mighty king, stripped bare before God. He is vulnerable, broken, and desperate for relief. David's words resonate across millennia. They speak to a universal human experience, pain. Whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, suffering touches us all. In our moments of deepest despair, we, like David, turn to a higher power. Psalm 6 is not a passive prayer. It is a raw, unfiltered outpouring of emotion. David doesn't sugarcoat his pain. He cries out to God, questioning, pleading, and even accusing. This rawness is what makes Psalm 6 so compelling. It reminds us that we are not alone in our suffering. Even David, the man after God's own heart, experienced moments of profound anguish. O Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger or discipline me in your wrath. Have mercy on me, Lord, for I am faint. Heal me, Lord, for my bones are in agony. My soul is in deep anguish. How long, Lord, how long? Psalm 6, 1-3. David wastes no time in conveying the depth of his despair. He feels the weight of God's displeasure. We don't know the specific circumstances, but David's words paint a vivid picture of his inner turmoil. His body is racked with pain, his bones aching, but the pain runs deeper than physical discomfort. His soul, the very core of his being, is in anguish. He cries out, "How long, Lord, how long?" Time seems to stand still when we are in the clutches of suffering. David's plea for mercy is not a demand, it's the desperate cry of one who recognizes his need for God's grace. He knows he cannot escape this suffering on his own. Turn, Lord, and deliver me. Save me because of your unfailing love. Among the dead, who remembers you? Who praises you from the grave? I am worn out from my groaning. All night long I flood my bed with weeping and drench my couch with tears. My eyes grow weak with sorrow. They fail because of all my foes. Psalm 6, 4-7. David's plea for mercy continues with a renewed urgency. He longs for God to turn towards him, to deliver him from this pit of despair. He appeals to God's unfailing love, reminding God of his faithfulness. The imagery in these verses is stark. David contrasts the silence of the grave with the vibrancy of life lived in praise of God. He recognizes that death offers no opportunity to glorify God. His plea is for life, for a chance to continue praising his Savior. We see the physical toll that emotional anguish takes on David. He is exhausted from weeping, his eyes swollen and weary. The mention of foes introduces another layer to his suffering, the presence of enemies who contribute to his pain. Away from me, all you who do evil, for the Lord has heard my weeping. Lord has heard my cry for mercy. The Lord accepts my prayer. All my enemies will be ashamed and dismayed. They will turn back in sudden disgrace. Psalm 6, 8-10. In a remarkable shift in tone, the final verses of Psalm 6 offer a glimmer of hope. David, seemingly emboldened, addresses his enemies directly. He proclaims that God has heard his cries, that his prayers have been answered. This declaration is not born out of arrogance. It stems from a deep-seated faith in God's power and faithfulness. David believes that even in his brokenness, God hears him. The psalm concludes with a vision of his enemies retreating in disgrace. While this might seem vengeful, it reflects David's confidence in God's ultimate justice. He believes that God will vindicate him, not necessarily through earthly revenge, but through the triumph of righteousness. Section 5. David's anguish, a mirror to our pain. David's raw and honest expression of pain in Psalm 6 is deeply relatable. We may not be kings facing literal enemies, but we all experience moments of profound suffering. We know what it means to feel overwhelmed, to question why we're going through pain. David teaches us that it is okay to bring our rawest emotions to God. We don't have to pretend to be strong or to have all the answers. We can come to him with our doubts, our fears, and our anger. In fact, it is in those moments of vulnerability that we often experience God's presence most profoundly. When we strip away the pretense and come to him with open hearts, we create space for him to meet us in our pain. Section 6. The significance of David's pleas. Each plea that David utters in Psalm 6 carries profound significance. His cry for mercy reminds us of our need for God's grace. We are all flawed, broken people in need of forgiveness and compassion. His plea for healing speaks to our longing for wholeness, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. We yearn for relief from pain, for restoration, and for peace. David's acknowledgement of his enemies reminds us that suffering is often caused by external forces. We live in a broken world where sin and evil have real consequences. Finally, his confidence in God's deliverance points us towards hope. Even in our darkest moments, we can cling to the truth that God hears our cries and that He is working for our good. Section 7. Divine compassion, a balm for the soul. Psalm 6 is not just about human suffering, it is also a testament to divine compassion. Throughout the psalm, we see David appealing to God's mercy and love. He knows that God is not distant or indifferent to his pain. This is a powerful reminder for us. When we're hurting, it is easy to believe that God has abandoned us. But Psalm 6 assures us that God is near to the brokenhearted. He hears our cries, even when we feel like we're drowning in sorrow. God's compassion is not a passive sympathy, it is an active force that seeks to heal, restore, and redeem. When we invite Him into our suffering, He enters into our pain and walks with us through the darkness. Section 8. The enduring relevance of Psalm 6. Psalm 6, though written thousands of years ago, speaks to us with a startling freshness. Its themes of suffering, prayer, and divine compassion are timeless. No matter our background, culture, or circumstance, we all experience pain and loss. In a world that often tells us to hide our emotions, to toughen up and move on, Psalm 6 gives us permission to grieve. It reminds us that it is okay to not be okay. More importantly, it points us towards the one who can truly comfort us in our pain. It reminds us that we are not alone in our suffering. God is with us, and He cares. Section 9. Conclusion. Finding solace in shared humanity. Psalm 6 is a poignant reminder that we are not alone in our suffering. Even David, a man after God's own heart, experienced moments of profound anguish and despair. His raw, honest expression of pain invites us to bring our own brokenness to God, knowing that He hears our cries and offers comfort and hope. As we reflect on this ancient psalm, may we find solace in the shared human experience of suffering and draw strength from the unwavering compassion of our God. In our moments of deepest need, may we, like David, find the courage to cry out to God, knowing that He is near to the brokenhearted and that His love endures forever.